A 36-year-old man recently sat in my office and confessed something that completely changed his perspective on intimacy. He said, "Doc, I have always just used one finger. I thought that was more than enough, but the other night, almost by accident, I tried using two instead. The reaction I got from her was completely different. It was night and day. But honestly, I have absolutely no idea why it changed everything." And that right there, the "I don't know what changed," is a classic story I hear almost every single day. Most men think that giving pleasure is just a guessing game, but the difference between using one finger and two isn't subjective. It isn't magic. It is hardwired into female anatomy and the exact physiology of her nervous system. Today, as an expert, I am going to break down exactly why two fingers work fundamentally differently than one. I will show you when this technique actually amplifies her pleasure, when it makes absolutely no sense at all, and the critical mistakes that almost every guy makes, even the ones who think they already know this trick. Let's start with the most important anatomical fact you need to understand. The walls of the female intimate area are packed with what we call mechanoreceptors. These are specialized nerve endings that don't just react to the depth of penetration. They heavily rely on the surface area and the distribution of pressure. Think of it like this. Using one finger creates a very narrow, pinpoint pressure on a restricted area of tissue. It is like pressing a single key on a piano. But two fingers, placed side by side, create a much wider, evenly distributed pressure. You are instantly targeting a massively larger surface area of nerve endings, all at the exact same time. You are playing a full chord. This directly multiplies the sheer volume of sensory signals being sent to her brain per second. This isn't some abstract theory where more is automatically better. This is a documented physiological mechanism of increasing the sensory load on a highly specific target zone. But here is a crucial detail that almost no one talks about online. This difference doesn't work the same way everywhere. The absolute highest concentration of these sensitive nerve endings is located strictly in the first third of the vaginal canal, right near the entrance. This is exactly where the difference between one and two fingers is felt the most intensely. If you bypass this zone and try to stimulate deeper, the density of those receptors drastically drops off. Down there, the number of fingers matters much less than the specific angle and precision of your movement. This means that blindly shoving a second finger in, regardless of how deep you are, is a terrible strategy. The maximum effect is always right at the entrance. Beyond just the surface area of pressure, there is a second biological mechanism at play: tissue stretching. The vaginal walls don't just have tactile receptors. They are also loaded with stretch receptors that react specifically to changes in volume. When you use two fingers, you create a much more pronounced, natural stretch compared to just one. This activates a completely secondary type of neurological signal. Her brain interprets this specific stretch as a much more intense, fuller sensation. When you combine the tactile touch with this physical stretch simultaneously, you are technically hacking her nervous system. You are activating two completely different types of receptors at the exact same time. The combined effect isn't just the same feeling, but stronger. It creates a qualitatively different, overwhelming wave of pleasure. However, you must understand a critical warning. This biological hack only works if there is a high level of natural arousal and sufficient lubrication. If her delicate tissues are not properly hydrated and lubricated, the additional stretch from that second finger won't create pleasure. It will create friction, severe discomfort, and even painful micro-tears in the mucosa. You should never start your foreplay with two fingers. The transition from one finger to two should only happen when she is already highly aroused. How do you know? Look for biological cues: natural wetness, heavier and deeper breathing, and relaxed thigh muscles. Do not just upgrade to two fingers because 5 minutes have passed. Read her body language. Now let's get into the actual technique. The positioning of your fingers matters just as much as how many you use. If you press your two fingers tightly together with zero gap, the pressure becomes highly concentrated and feels very intense along one specific line. But if you leave a slight gap between your fingers, the pressure distributes wider. The sensation becomes more volumetric and enveloping rather than pinpoint. Which one should you use? It completely depends on what effect she craves in that exact second. You should alternate between these positions in real time, watching how her body reacts. Your movements also need an upgrade. With two fingers, you don't just move in and out. You can use gentle, spreading micro movements. Simply spreading your fingers apart by a fraction of an inch while inside creates a dynamic, moving stretch. This constantly triggers those stretch receptors we talked about earlier. You physically cannot do this with one finger because you lack the leverage. This V-shaped stretch is an exclusive benefit of the two-finger technique. Want to take it to the absolute maximum? You must incorporate your thumb. If you use the base of your palm or your thumb to apply gentle, rhythmic pressure to her external clitoris while your two fingers are working inside, you create what doctors call blended stimulation. Studies in sexual physiology prove that stimulating multiple erogenous zones simultaneously is perceived by the human brain as vastly more intense than the sum of those parts stimulated separately. This is the synergy effect. This is exactly what causes women to say, "I can't even explain what I just felt." Her nervous system simply gets flooded with pleasure. Let's talk about the most common mistakes guys make with this, even after watching tutorials. First, the rushed transition. Jumping from one finger to two way too fast without paying attention to her physical readiness just because a video told you to. Second, the statue hand. Keeping your fingers frozen in one rigid position. You must experiment with the gap, the angle, and the stretch. Variability is what prevents numbness and maximizes the effect. Third, ignoring the feedback loop. If her body tenses up, if her breathing stops, or if she asks you to change the intensity, listen. Her body is giving you the exact blueprint of what works for her in that specific second. Finally, let's be totally honest about when two fingers will ruin the mood. If your partner is anatomically smaller or naturally hypersensitive, one single finger might already provide the maximum sensory load her body can handle. If she isn't fully relaxed, forcing a second finger will just create painful pressure. In these cases, more is not better. It is a massive physiological error. Stick to one finger, but master your angles and internal targets instead of trying to compensate with volume. Every woman's anatomy, elasticity, and sensitivity are completely unique. There is no universal law that says two fingers are always better than one. There is only physiological logic. You have to apply this science based on the specific woman in front of you, not blindly follow a script. Remember the 36-year-old patient I mentioned at the beginning? He went home and actually applied this exact sequence. He focused on arousal first, transitioned to two fingers slowly, experimented with the gap, and incorporated his thumb. A few weeks later, he messaged me. He realized the magic wasn't just in the two fingers. It was in finally understanding the science of her body, rather than just copying a move he saw online. If you want to stop guessing in the bedroom and actually understand the raw anatomy and physiology of female pleasure, hit that subscribe button right now. I break down these topics every single week with real medical science, not fake internet myths. And if you want access to the truly uncensored tips and answers to the questions you are too embarrassed to ask out loud, click the link in the description to join my private Telegram channel right now. See you there!